Hello and welcome back to the Privett Park Legends podcast. Today I'm joined by a Boro legend who played for the club between 1968 and 1970 before returning to the club in 1973 and retiring in 1977. In that time, he won Gospel's first of two Hampshire League titles. I welcome Peter Mullice. How are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
So I think the first question I got asked is, how have you been coping in lockdown?
Very well, actually. Unfortunately, I generally play tennis 2 or 3 times a week, but I haven't been able to do that, although some people have returned to it. But I've managed to do a 3 or 4 mile walk every day, and some been up on the South Downs a couple of times walking. So yeah, I'm keeping pretty fit, really. Doing a lot of jobs at the house like everybody else in the garden. So no, not too bad. In fact, I think in some ways I count myself fairly fortunate compared with the desperate situation that other people are in. So yeah, looking on the bright side.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bad time for the whole country.
It is,
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, that seems to be the one regular thing everyone says they do now is gardening. So Tony mentioned that he said everybody in the country probably have lovely gardens by the end of lockdown.
yeah. Fortunately, my wife's the gardener. Really, I'm just a labourer. Yeah, I dig things out and things like that. So yeah, but I've actually quite enjoyed it. So yeah, it's been a bit more peaceful, shall we say. I think the thing we probably all miss is we've not really been able to have much of a family contact. Both my children live away from Gosport, so that's probably been the worst thing.
And of course, the big news in terms of Gosport is maybe no one expected this was Lee Molyneux leaving. What did you think about that?
Well, I think it should be remembered. I think Lee did a pretty good job. I mean, the previous seasons were pretty desperate. And although expectations were very high when Lee started, we're going to win the league, that's always a difficult call. So I think he did a good job, but it's very difficult, I think, when you come back to manage a team who a lot of them you've played with as players. That's not an easy call, and I think he obviously lacked managerial experience, but so I'm not altogether surprised that he's moved on, and maybe the job came a little bit too early for him. But I'm sure he and Mick Catlin will be a formidable managerial pairing at Porchester. I wish him all the best, and you never know. One day he might return to the Borough, get a bit more experience under his wing. Yeah.
I definitely felt during the season expectations definitely at the start were really high for the club, and I think not want to come out this wrong way, but almost the sort of club had an even bigger expectation after we beat Taunton on the first game of the season 3-0, and it was sort of, don't want to sound wrong about it, sort of shook the team in its own foot because everyone thought, right, we're going to storm this league now, it's going to be really easy because the other favourites would just smash at home. And I think
it's a hard old league, that I mean, a lot of players have been, come across from National League, and I had a slight sense that some of them thought it was going to be a bit easier, and I'm not sure that was the case. I mean, football expectations from the fans are always unreasonable, aren't they? But when I look at where they finished, it was a much better season, and I think Lee must take some credit for that.
Definitely.
So I wish him well.
And then also, Sean Gale's coming. I mean, some people joke as him as Mr. Hammond after all his time there, and he joined early in February. But to be fair, it's probably one of the best points you can make at a time, especially the amount of experience he has, the promotions he's won.
I totally agree. I mean, the road between Gosport and Waterlooville has been trodden by managers and players for many years. So that's nothing new. And I think if you look at Sean's qualifications. He's played at a good level. He's managed at a good level. I think he still feels he's got something to prove. I think it's a good appointment. I mean, time will tell, like anybody else. But I think he realises that Gosport is a club which is on the move, and I think he's got an opportunity. I think the other important thing is he will know the local scene. He will know local players, and having a bit of a name, he probably will be able to attract players to Gosport as well. Yeah. No, I think it's good. I think the other thing, the club itself seems to be moving in the right direction. And I've always thought that to get a good team on the pitch, you've got to be well organised with it. And that hasn't always been the case with Gosport. And I think now, under Mr. McInnes's leadership, they're trying to get that infrastructure, that solid base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that you need really to have a successful team on the pitch. So I wish them well.
Yeah, I think definitely over the last season, that's been one of the biggest improvements is stability. You had Colin Farmery come over. He's been introduced. I mean, he's helped massively, particularly as I'm in contact with him a lot in my area. But he's really trying to help push the club forward as well, make it more professional. And it is.
Colin's a good friend of mine. I suppose he used to come and watch us when I was playing. But I also caught up with him on a professional level when we were both working. And he's got a genuine interest in pushing the club forward. He's got a proven media track record. So no, it's all very encouraging, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I think as well, the thing with Sean is that a lot of players who are already playing for Gosport, Rory Williams, Mike Carter, Ryan Woodford, all those sort of players all come from Havant and then rejoined Gosport. And a lot of those players would have been coached under Sean, so he knows exactly how they play, how they work as players, what is the best system for those players. And I think that's so important. You don't want to, especially this season, where pre-season might not be as long as it would be in the past. You need a coach who knows straight away how these players work, what system works best for them, and what other players you need to bring in order to help that team, push for promotion.
Yeah. I think that's all very important. I wouldn't. I think it's getting that, if your commitment out of players. His job will be to get the best out of those players. They're undoubted, talented, experienced players, but he's got to instill in them a kind of hunger at Gosport. Not that they've been there, done it. That actually this is a team that wants, or a club that wants to move forward. Players are well paid these days, and I think I'm sure Sean will be as well qualified to get that out of players than anybody, precisely because he does know those players, and they of course know him as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that sometimes that can breed a little bit of complacency. It's a little bit too comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think managers need that little bit of distance from players sometimes. They need to know when to step in and when to just remain a little bit aside. And I think that's a difficulty when you manage players that you've played with, because it's a completely different relationship. Yeah. But no, I think they've got some good players there. Let's hope that he can get the best out of them.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's move back onto you now, as this podcast is all about.
Yeah.
I think the first question we got asked is, what was your first footballing memory?
Quite simply, I must have been with Gosport.
No, just as a child. What do you
As a
remember?
child,
Yeah, what was your first memory of thinking, oh, I love this? Or there was something that says, oh, I want to go and play this game?
oh, as kids, yeah, I grew up in Bridgemoor, and as kids, yeah, we had to make our own entertainment. Yeah, and it largely surrounded playing football in the winter and cricket in the summer. There wasn't a lot of equipment around. I mean, if you had a kid in the street who owned a football, you looked after that kid because you might want to go and knock on his door to borrow the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we led a very kind of outdoor existence, but spent enormous amounts of time playing football in the evening after school, especially in the summer. Yeah, so they relate back really to playing football in the road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could, and when the occasional car came past, you know, you'd stand aside, let the car go through, and yeah, and you carry on playing. You know, it was just the way it was. Yeah.
And
So they go back to playing street football really in Bridgemoor. But you know, there was always sometimes we had a patch of land where we lived, and you know, sometimes you'd get 18, 20 kids turn up for a game. You know, that's where I first came across Roger Buckland. Yeah, I played with Roger. I suppose we must have been 8, 9. And then when I was at junior school, he was a year older than me, and we played in the same junior school team, you know, at Holbrook School. And yeah, then years later, yeah, we were playing for the Boro together. So yeah, that's nice.
come back full circle.
Yeah.
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 Was there a team you ever went to go and watch as a kid? Was there anyone?
Yeah, my grandfather was an avid Portsmouth fan. He watched them from their Southern League games, and he sort of encouraged my father. And I would go. I saw Portsmouth play a few times in their championship days, way back. So memories of Fratton Park with crowds of 45,000 are quite clear, really. And my grandfather would take us. I think the big crowds, by the time he was in his mid-70s, had intimidated him a bit. So we'd go to reserve games at Fratton Park. We'd sit in the south stand. But, you know, you get 10,000 there to watch a reserve game. And then we go for fish and chips afterwards. Yeah, so I've got those kind of memories.
So was it...
Sorry, yeah?
So was it your granddad who was the main person who got you really into football, that idea of going every weekend to go and watch?
Yeah, because well, the other thing he did, little known, unless you were around at that time, in Witch Lane in Bridgemoor, what is called the Isle of Wight estate, there was a field there called the Victory Field, and Portsmouth used to use that field for their A and B teams. They ran a B team at one time. And it really was a field with hedges around it. I think a 5-bar gate. The changing rooms was a double-decker. I think it was probably a provincial bus. And one team changed upstairs, and I think the Pompey team changed downstairs. So, yeah, you could see really good players there. Players who perhaps were on their way down, and players who were coming back from injury and things like that. You know, first division experience as it was in those days. Yeah. So yeah, it was always there or thereabouts. And I was always reading football books and things like that, you know. So it was a strong motivator for me from my very early days.
And was there any particular play during of those Portsmouth teams that had an effect on you? There were maybe things he did on the pitch you wanted to emulate?
I think Peter Harris was probably the he was a right winger, of course, but he was lightning quick, and you can hear when the ball was passed inside the fullback for him to run onto, the crowd just the noise swelled in anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a good goal scorer, a good crosser of the ball, you know. So yeah, it was. And of course, you know, the Pompey strip in those days, the royal blue, the white and the red socks. There was certainly a kind of romance about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, what school did you go to, and was that the first proper team you played for in terms of a youth team?
Yeah. I went to the infant school in Bridgemoor, which is still there, and then I went to Holbrook Junior School, which was where Gosport Leisure Centre is now. And that was a series of old Army Nissen huts, and I can remember in the main corridor of one of the blocks was a wall with all the pictures of the old football teams ex-school, and I thought, yeah, I want to be on one of those pictures, you know. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to get selected in the third year of junior school, and it was Roger was playing, and yeah, we won the cup and the league that year. We had a good side. So and schools football was very, very strong in Gosport. The competition with school with you know, between schools was fierce. They're very competitive, and winning cups and leagues was important, you know. So yeah.
Do you know what you would have won that league and cup?
I think that was. I've still got the medals somewhere because they're really good medals.
Yeah.
Yeah, and enameled finishes on them. Yeah, that would have been 50, 55, 56, I think it was. Yeah, because the next year when I was in the fourth year,
Mm-hmm.
which would have been 56, 57. Yeah, we didn't win anything that year. I think the good players.
Like to forget that year, do you?
Yeah.
What position did you play throughout your time at school? Because some people may know that you played both sweeper and centre forward. So just to sort of give them an idea of where you were playing at that sort of time.
Well, junior school, I was on the right wing to begin with. And then I can't really remember. I don't know. I probably played a bit at centre forward. Probably maybe played a bit at centre half as well.
Yeah.
In the fourth year. Yeah.
Was that transition to centre half from right wing, was that a bit of a shock at first, or did you take to it straight away as a centre half?
Yeah, I think I took to it. Remember, yeah, football was the main game that we played.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so every spare bit of time we had, we you know, in class we would be picking up the team. Yeah, we would be picking sides for the break time.
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't waste time when we got into the break time. Yeah, losing time on the match, so we were ready to go. Yeah, and we'd pass around the class who the teams were. Yeah, to sort of go out. So yeah, we were always playing football. So I suppose you just learn to be comfortable on the ball, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You know. And even Sunday mornings, there used to be a bit of land where I'd go with a couple of my pals, and we'd just kick around, have a kick about. Yeah, I think that's where. Yeah, when you're playing, there's two of you. One goes in goal, and one's trying to score.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realise at the time, but you're actually learning an awful lot. And about finishing. Yeah.
Did you prefer playing at centre half, or did you?
No, not really.
Playing at right wing and attacking.
Really, I played centre half. Probably because after that first year in school football, the school teams I played in until I got to the sixth form were not strong.
Yeah.
And so I was probably, one of the better players, if you like. So, could read the little, if you want, better stick him at centre half and see whether we can keep the score down. That's often how it was, So there were periods in my life when losing, 3 or 4-0 was quite a major achievement. But but I tell you what, it teaches you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It teaches you a lot.
What do you think the most important lessons you learned from those school footballing days when going into semi-professional football or amateur football?
You had to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have that competitive streak in you. All right. Otherwise, I always thought there are a lot of good footballers in Gosport who never really made the most of what they had, because they lacked that real kind of competitive spirit. Mind you, there were many, many others. It was a hotbed of football. There's some really good local players grew up, particularly in Bridgemere. You could real name after name, but also in Gosport. I mean, you've got to remember also that not only was schools football very competitive, when eventually you get into men's leagues, men's football, it was very different from today. Mm-hmm. It was a real community driver. Okay, male orientated, obviously at that time, but you had 4 men's leagues in Gosport. Mm-hmm. I mean, I started off playing in a youth league, at Gosport. I think it's Gosport Fairham Youth League with Paragon, and we won the league and the cup. That was under 17 level, so that was a good transition period. But you had 4 Saturday leagues, you had 4 Sunday leagues. So it really was an integral part of the Gosport community. Pubs, clubs, businesses, firms would have their teams.
Do you think?
Sorry.
Do you think not having as many local leagues like Gosport had, where they had 4? Do you think that's had an impact where there's not as many players coming through the system, or do you think there's other factors why, for example, maybe Gosport don't have as many local players, like it was 8 or 7 or 8? I think
it depends how you look at this. Things were very different. There was almost a kind of pyramid in Gosport, and the pinnacle, I suppose, was that you ended up playing your hometown club, which was something that I always appreciated. There's something about playing for Gosport, and I think the players today, I think football's changed so much today, but it's a shame in a way that don't appear. I don't know where the players come from, but I know Rory Williams is from Gosport. I don't know who else, there may be others, but from Gosport. And in the old days, I think people would go and watch Gosport because they were largely local players, and that seems to have changed. It doesn't seem to be, and I think that's a shame, because that creates local interest. And it's to be hoped that this structure that the club now have got, with all these teams underlying it, can actually produce players from Gosport playing for Gosport. But you're in a far more commercial world now. And it's if the quality isn't there, and I'm not saying it isn't, I don't know what the current scene is, then you've got to look elsewhere. And of course, we always, even when I was playing, there was sort of now and again, maybe a couple of players from Portsmouth, or a couple from Southampton or something like that. So it was always, but the main, I can remember when I was assistant manager to Pete Edgar and Tony Brickwood, we could have put out a Southern League team of Gosport boys. Gosport people who'd grown up in Gosport. I don't think we ever did, but there were enough people at that time from Gosport playing in that in that team to have populated it with Gosport boys.
To be fair, I think the club is sort of trying to emulate that. You mentioned it before, this central excellence, where you try and get a pyramid of players going from all these local teams where they're trying to scout them into under 9s, into your under, then all the way up to under 18s, then up to your under 23s, and then into reserves, and hopefully first. So I think again that's all part of Ian McInnes's big idea of like you get this back to give back to the community, this club, rather than it just maybe become a bit more distance. It's a club you go to, but that's it. It's not involved anymore. It's just you go and watch football, a bit cheaper than go to Portsmouth or Southampton, and that's it really. Yeah.
No, I think those efforts are to be applauded, and I think it's the only way to go, because there's no. It doesn't seem to me, without knowing what football is being played on local parks in Gosport, that infrastructure has gone. So you've got to replace it with something, and I think what they're trying to do there now is it's got to be the way forward.
Yeah, I think there is,
but I don't think they should necessarily expect that suddenly you're going to have all these Gosport boys, because if you out of that get 2 players who can play in first team football, initially you're doing well. Because it doesn't just happen.
Yeah, I think it's difficult now because you've got the commercialisation. You've got clubs need to win and you need to win in order to keep financially stable. If you lose all the time, even though you have 8 or 7 children, young players playing in the first team, they're not going to be playing much longer. Clubs just going to go bankrupt. I think also the extra challenge we've got is that every football club now scouts youth players. They're all looking for the best young talent. I mean, there's some clubs that would take them at the age of 4 or 5, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, especially with Portsmouth and Southampton, it is quite difficult for a club like Gosport or or anyone just to say, "I'll come and play for us," instead of playing for Portsmouth or Southampton. It's a big.
It ain't going to happen, is it?
Challenge to try and convince someone to say, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah. And of course, people get promised the earth too, don't they? And I think the other thing to remember is that you've got to look at the nature of the way that, if you like, children develop. They mature at different times. It takes some players, some youngsters peak at 13. I can think of some that I've known in the past. That's the best they'll ever be. Whereas, some people's, if I take my own case, really, part of it was because I was away for training for 3 years, but it was probably 22 before I really started to get the best from myself. Yeah. So that's got to be borne in mind. You can have some well beaters, if you like, at 9, 10, 11, but they fizzled out by the time they're 14. And others who sort of bumble along, suddenly something happens, a switch is flicked, and they're ready to go.
Yeah. So going back to now your career.
Yeah.
1963, you joined a team called Paragon. What were they?
Yeah.
Were they a local Sunday League team?
Yeah, they were a very well-run team. They started off, I think, as a group of Gosport Grammar School boys. And I think there was a parent called George Webb, and his son Tony played. And he actually got a good team together. And they played in the Gosport leagues successfully. And then they were promoted they went into the Portsmouth League because that was a higher, considered to be, I think, a better standard, higher standard. And I played in the youth team. That would have been under 17, 62, 63, was that? Yeah, we had a good side. I mean, we were far too strong for most teams. So that was a good introduction. 64, I went away for 3 years. I'd come home and I'd play the odd game for them in the Gosport League.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finished my training after 3 years, I came back. And it was just a natural thing to do. We were playing, I forget what it was called. It wasn't the Pompey Premier League. It was a league below that. And we won promotion to the Premier League. And but then Arthur Windsor came in for me. He was at Waterlooville at the time. And I actually signed for Waterlooville. And I played one game for Waterlooville, interestingly enough, against Gosport at Privett Park. And there's another guy who sadly died about a year ago, Alan Webb, and he played for Waterlooville too. He was playing for Bridgebury in the Gosport League, and I was playing for. No, that was I think Bridgebury in the league, Pompey League too, maybe. But anyway, I forget. But yeah, we beat the Boro 4-2. Alan scored 2 goals, and I scored 2 goals. Right. So, yeah, but it just, I'd always wanted to play for Gosport, really. And I'd first gone into Privett Park when I was about 8 with a mate of mine, and we used to get on the number 3 bus down to Cheriton Road, walk through. We'd have a ball with us as ever, and there was a hockey pitch in Privett Park, which ran alongside Privett School. And we used to kick around because there was a hockey goal there with a net. Yeah. And that was, well, having a net in it, that was heaven for us, you know. So we kick around in the hockey goal beforehand, and then we go and watch the Gosport play.
Yeah.
And there was just something about the atmosphere. We'd sit up in the stand. It wasn't a lot. It's easily recognisable from today, but very different in some respects. The Gosport used to play in their royal blue and gold quartered shirts.
Yeah.
And they really, you know, and I just looked at this and thought, oh, I'd love to play football here. And then through school, I would go and watch Gosport schools play there. And in fact, next time, really, I went there, and it was when Gosport schools reached the 6th round of the English schools trophy.
Mm-hmm.
And they played Brierley Hill. And people of my age will remember that, because Gosport had a good side, and they had a chap called Brian Capel. Now, anybody knows Gosport football way back, Brian was a fantastic player. He lived around the corner from me, and he played for England schools. 1960, I think it was, under 15, with people like Martin Peters, who went on to win a World Cup winners, Bobby Smith, and he played in front of 90,000 people at Wembley Stadium. And it was the days of the old schoolboy international. Schools would, you know, take their coaches up there on a Saturday morning, and you think at 15, yeah, this guy lived around the corner was playing in front of 90,000 people. So, yeah, that was a memory. And of course, then always thought, yeah, I'd love to play football there. And I always remember all my playing days. Always remembered. Every time I ran out there, I appreciated. I can remember as a kid wanting to play here. Don't take this for granted, because it's a great place to play football. It really is. And yeah, I look, yeah, fondly back at those days. It was tough at times, you know. We had some real battles, but it was good fun. Yeah, good days.
Just so people quickly understand, before we just jump back a bit, for Paragon FC, how did you get involved in that? How did you join? Was it something someone saw you playing for the school and asked you to join, or was it something you went along and asked them?
I don't know. Possibly my brother.
Mm-hmm.
He played for them. He was brother Ivan. He played at the Boro for a while, and he was an ex-grammar school boy, and it was probably that link through him. But it was a very well-run club. I mean, the clubs were, generally speaking, well-run in those days. You'd get a card every week come through your door, giving you where to meet and what time the kickoff was. Yeah, it was. It was a well-run club.
And with your brother playing for Gospel, did that slightly heighten even more what your, not desperateness, but you wanting to play for Gospel? The idea that your brother played for them, that you wanted to.
Well, no, I think I signed for the Borough before he did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. It just seemed a kind of obviously Paragon didn't stand him in the way. They weren't too happy about it.
Yeah.
Because I'd scored a lot of goals and but it just seemed an obvious move for me to make, really, and it was the right move and a good move for me to make. Yeah.
So when did you play that one game for Waterloo? Was it just before you joined?
It was the end of the 57-58 season.
And when you went and played against Gospel, was there sort of
67-68, not 57.
That's quite a good age to get into professional football.
Yeah. I was burnt out by the next year.
Youngest player, a very high prospect, right? Everyone rated you in that local team then if you played in 58.
It's what? Sorry again.
I said everyone rated you then if you played in 58 for Gospel. You were a young prospect.
Yeah, I would have been then. I would have been 50. I would have been about 13. Yeah. Yeah.
When you did play for Waterloo or played against Gospel, was there a bit of? Did it feel a bit odd and a bit of conflict that you played?
Yeah, it did.
You always wanted to play?
It did really. But you don't have any problem if you find yourself in a goal scoring opportunity. It doesn't really matter who the opposition is. You stick it away, don't you? But it did. I think I knew then. But I was looking at the team I was playing again, thinking this is a team I really want to play for. Yeah.
And so, who approached you to get you from, essentially, take you away from Waterlooville and go to Gospel?
Well, it was a time when Charlie Howard took over. The manager before that had been, what's his name? Stan Cribb. He packed up. Stan had been the manager for many years, and he stopped, and Charlie Howard took over. And I don't know whether he probably came and saw me. I think he came and saw me with possibly Pete Edgar. Yeah, and just said, "Look, do you want to come give it a go? Come." So I did.
So what was Waterlooville's reaction to that after playing one game, scoring goals, and then saying, "Oh, sorry, I'm off"?
I don't. Well, I'd only signed at the end of that season. I don't know. I mean, it was just being my hometown club. That's the club I wanted to play for.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. I don't think it was any surprise. I mean, Arthur Windsor actually ended back at Gosport as a trainer, coach, very shortly afterwards. So I don't think it was any great surprise, really.
So you said it was only for the end of the season at Wolverhampton. Did you know if they wanted to sign you, to be a first team player permanently?
Well, I think they wanted to. I think they wanted to sign me, but I think once I'd signed for Gosport, well, what no point in pursuing it.
Yeah. So you spent, because you signed for Gosport in 1968. You spent 2 years there from 68 to 1970. Can you just, what was your experience of those first 2 years? Was the club, did it meet your expectations? Of course, you've sat there as a was it everything it was meant to be?
It did. It did to begin with. It certainly. I mean, I was going into quite an established side. I mean, I was 22. I was going and suddenly playing with players I'd only read about in the Football Mail or whatever, and it's having your own stadium, and though they weren't that good, playing under floodlights occasionally, it had an atmosphere that you weren't getting in local parks football. It required a commitment to it in terms of training and all the rest of it. So it was definitely another level. And I went into, there was quite a good team. There was another guy who played for God, one of the best players I played with, called Dave Price. Yeah. He played for Paragon with me. And he was an excellent player, could play anywhere, literally. He'd play on the left wing, I'd play centre forward, or we could play on the right wing. He ended up playing right back. He was just a very, very good footballer. But I also went into a team where, when I look back, Tony Milne in goal, probably the best goalkeeper I ever played with. Tony Stairs, a run-in, close second, very different goalkeeper. Tony was the best, what I call line keeper. Incredible reactions. You'd sort of be calling for him, come off your line, Tony, come and get the ball, and he wouldn't, and he'd stand. But he made these saves consistently, and that was the way he played, and he was an excellent goalkeeper. Tony Milne commanded his box. If Tony Milne came for the ball, he'd take, when I was playing sweeper, he took me out. He'd get in the ball, he'd take me out. He'd take Tony Marnie out sometimes, but I also played with players like Mickey Slaymaker. Now, he was a bit of a legend. Terrific fullback, left back. Yeah. Irrepressible. There was the Brickwood brothers, Tony and Graham. Very, very good players. And they were players with a pedigree. Graham, I mean, as a front runner, if you're going to score goals, you depend upon the service you can get. Okay, you can work hard, you can make a run, all those things. Yeah. So it's a joint effort, but you need somebody to get you the ball at the right time. And Graham Brickwood knew when to release the ball, and so he put you in the optimum position, really. Who else was there? Oh, there's a whole host of them, but yeah, we had quite a useful side. Yeah. But there was something special too about the royal blue and gold, and I tell you, it irritates me to this day. Why? You tell me, Sam, why don't the Boro play in their proper colours?
I don't know. I would have to ask. I'll tell you who
there are a few of us.
Find out from is Brian Muzzlewa. He will probably know. He knows.
Yeah, well, you are. Yeah, but Ryan's not responsible for it.
No, he's not responsible. He'll probably know the reason though, because he seems to know
well,
every
my
ever play for the club, you know, when
yeah,
they play, how many games? It's like he has
yeah. Well, my take on it, and I may be wrong. I've had this conversation with Pete Edgar because I know he feels the same as me. Yeah, that royal blue and gold. That's the colours.
yeah.
And last season, when I heard them referred to as the yellows, what the yellow? I've been going to that club for 50 years. All right. Plus, they're not. Whoever decided they'd be called the yellows. It's royal blue and gold, and I think there should be a movement to get them back to the original colours. Now I've got a feeling that what Maya kicked it off, it was cheaper to buy kit which was dark blue and yellow than royal blue and gold. Now, I understand that, all right, but I think there needs to be a groundswell of getting the Boro to play in their proper colours.
Maybe you could get a whole load of ex-players together and make a huge campaign and get it going.
I think that could be a goer. Yeah. Yeah.
But as you said, all these players, it's very experienced players. Was that a bit at first when you went into the club? Was that a bit daunting having all these experienced players? Some of you, them you had even watched going into that, or did it make?
Well, yeah,
what they were doing.
Yeah.
So, for example, they made the right pass to you as a striker. It made it easy for you rather than
but I tell you what, there's almost an unfairness about it. If you bang in the goals, nobody cares, do they?
Yeah.
You know, you answer your critics.
Yeah.
Yeah, just look at and that's that first season I scored 64 goals. You know, well, there's an unfairness about that. You know, strikers get noticed, don't they? Because you score goals, and they are a desirable commodity. That's why people pay fantastic sums for strikers. You know, so I was fortunate, really. I was fortunate to play in a team where I had plenty of chances to score goals, and so suddenly people just accept you.
And of course, you had some players that from your younger days playing that were also in the squad. Players from Paraguay, and as a kid with Roger Butler. Did that help as well with having those players around you? You know, when you knew that it's you have some sort of familiar setting, that you have these players you can feel comfortable. They're in the exact same position as you. They're new to the club, and you can all sort of, when it feels like a bit of struggle, especially as the big league jump in terms of quality, that you have those players who understand and you're going through this together.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think when you first arrive and you start pre-season training, you wonder if how you're gonna cope with that. Yeah, because people will be looking at you and you're thinking, oh yeah, these players have done it, I haven't, sort of thing. But I think once you realise, I mean, I was very fit in those days. And I quickly realised that, you know, fitness-wise, I was okay. Yeah, that wasn't going to be a problem to me, and so that helps. And of course, people are looking at you. Well, this guy scored goals. For Paragon. Let's see how good he is here. Yeah, let's see whether he can do the same. And when you start scoring goals, it's all forgiven in a way, isn't it? Yeah. So I was fortunate to play with good players. Yeah.
And then in 1970, this club you'd always want to play with, you left. What were the reasons behind that?
Well, I'd had. The first club who came in from me were Salisbury, Basingstoke, Waterloo Film. They were playing started the first real job. I started out on a teaching career, and I was able to manage my football well with that. It enabled, it was. But I knew these teams had sometimes long away games in the midweek and what have you, where you arriving back early hours of the morning and all the rest of it, and I didn't relish the thought of that, and then going facing a crowd of 30 kids first thing in the morning. Yeah.
So could you just tell me your job? What was your job exactly at that time?
I was a PE teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at Privett school, which was just across the park. But why did I go? I think in a way I wanted a new challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought at that time, I can remember the catalyst came really. The competition with Gosport and Fareham was pretty ferocious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it was just not the league games. The league, Good Friday, Monday, and you'd get 1,200 people in the park, watching these games. And of course, it was obviously the talk of the town afterwards, and there was a lot of sort of credit given to the team who won. And Fareham had some good sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we played a cup game at Bath Lane, and we were unlucky not to win it. And I think we drew it 2-2. You'd have to look at that. But I thought, right, okay, we're getting back down the park, and we'll take them. Well, we got stuffed 5-0.
What did go exactly to plan then? Exactly to plan then. Did it go to plan then, that game?
No, it didn't go to plan. But I think the club had lost its way a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to be, to me afterwards, nobody said a word.
Yeah.
And I thought, this doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And to me it did, and I'd had this offer from Alton, and I suppose it was a close season or what have you. I thought, no, I'll give it a go. I know that other players had made the move. I know that Tony Britt had gone to Southall or somewhere like that, and played up there. So I thought, well, and I enjoyed the 2 years I'd at Alton. They were a good club. Yeah, we had a good team there. Mm-hmm. But I always knew I would go back to Gosport.
Mm-hmm. So was it almost a bit like a frustration thing? Which you left because you were frustrated. By the end of it, was it that frustration with the club, or specifically those players, maybe during that game against Fareham, that had sort of eased off, and you were like, I want to go back and.
No, I think also it was possibly a time in my life as well. Mm-hmm. I think I just wanted to try football out of the town somewhere, mm-hmm. and I could still. That was 30 miles up the road. Rather a pleasant drive up to Alton, not the Meon Valley. And I managed. I could go up there for training and what have you. There was a team drawn from around different places. That was a good. Mm-hmm. 2 years. But then they went into the Athenian League, I think it was. Mm-hmm. I think it was the Athenian League, which is, I think, a London-based league. Returned to Gosport. So I approached the club. They didn't come after me. I approached the club, said, look, I'd like to come back and play for you. Mm-hmm. How about it? So I think it was Tony Higman who was the manager. They said, yeah, okay. So back I went.
Were Alton a bit frustrated by that? Or did they understand?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dennis Proby. Dennis Proby was in fact. I owe quite a lot to Dennis. He was. He had been appointed manager. He was the chief coach in Sussex. A chap who'd come from the Navy, and subsequently brought on a lot of young gospel players. A really good coach with young players. You know, Steve Ingman and Andy Bye, and people who went on to have good non-league careers. So I think he was a bit frustrated, but I knew I just wanted to go back and play with gospel. And things were on the change then. Yeah, there were new players who'd come in. That's no disrespect to the other players who played with, because some of those were getting on a bit. Yeah, they'd been around for quite a long time, and so the club was changing.
I don't know if you think like this, but with that last season, were you ever when you were playing for Alton compare it to what it would have been like at gospel? So when your mind started thinking, I want to go back to gospel and prove stuff, was it always something where you thought, oh, I enjoy it here, but it's not the same as
I think also because they were moving into a London-based league. Yeah, I didn't necessarily relish the prospect of further. Things were different these days. You wouldn't think twice about it. Yeah, it wasn't a big deal really. It just seemed an obvious thing to do.
And when you went back to gospel, did you feel extra bit of pressure coming back? So club you already left, was there a bit of weight pressure? There was something to maybe prove a bit, and that you've gone away, you've come back?
No, I didn't feel I had anything to go back to prove. I just wanted to go back and then continue enjoying playing football. And I suppose, I knew that Gosport had never won the Hampshire League. So, I mean, when I was with Alton, we won the Hampshire Senior Cup. We got to the first round of the FA Cup. And I suppose the only thing I hadn't won at that time was the Hampshire League. So it was good to be part of that and part of an emerging team, really. Because they became a very, very good team, and it was probably I was starting to pick up after a couple of years injuries and things like that. So you always you get to a point, I don't know, late on, where just before I retired, where you're almost sort of pre-season training all the time because you're always recovering from the latest injury.
I mean, Tony Marnie would have joined at the time of that sort of time. He said one of the big things, that the changing point in that sort of time, was not only that first league title, but the club sort of overtook Fareham. The club really thought we could go. Was it really this club that maybe sort of been slightly ahead, and you'd always been challenging, was now on the drop, and Gosport's on the up?
Definitely. And I think there are possibly a couple of reasons for that. Fareham in my days, probably, if you're to be fair, probably had the edge on us. We had some notable victories, but I would say they were a really good side. And if you go back to their amateur cup days, they had some very, very good teams. But they played at Bath Lane, and Bath Lane was a really good surface on which to play. And then they had this ambition to find the ground. They did it Cam's orders. And I think that was probably the start, the demise, really, of Fareham. Because you've probably been in grounds. If you've got a running track or a greyhound track between you and the pitch, it just distances everything. Yeah, you lack that kind of intimacy that you'd get in a place like Privett Park. And I think they suffered because of that. And Gosport also had some young players emerging. You know, I mean, although I played with Richie Colbert, and we still josh around today about his goals and what have you. I played with him. He actually came in. I'd moved back as sweeper. But players like Graham Waite, Steve Boswell, Neville Wood, and then Ali Eunice, Kenny Finley, Gary Duria. Yeah, they became a very good side. So it was good to be on the beginnings of that. But I moved back. When you, as a striker, if you lose that half yard, I always thought as a striker your basic requirement is you get 30 goals a season.
Yeah,
that's your target. That's your target. Well, if you lose half a yard in pace, you lose 15 goals. And moving back and playing at sweeper, you got Tony Milne behind you, who's commanding in the air. You've got Tony Marnie in front of you attacking the ball, except when it was my job to attack the ball. If I was the nearest guy, I'd attack it. So sweeping in behind that, just organising the defence, getting the defence out, what have you. If you're in a good side, it's a lovely position to play because the whole of the game's in front of you, and you can just just use your experience really. Yeah.
When you lost that yard of pace, was it you who sort of went up to? Would it be Tony Brick? Would it be Peter Edgar at the time managing? Was this around about?
Yeah, I think on one occasion I'd probably said to him, they probably somehow maybe somewhere was injured or something like that. I'll play there.
Yeah.
Put me there, and I think it's not uncommon, is it, for centre halves to play to move back? Really, I mean, it's quite a. There've been some famous instances of players doing that. So I think the other thing too is you can use your experience as a striker, to your own advantage as a defender, because you can have a kind of what a striker should be doing in a certain situation.
Now, of course, in 1976-77. Gosport won the Hampshire League. So the first ever league title Gosport won.
Yeah.
That included Jim Sculler and Peter.
Yeah, hold on. Was that that's not the Hampshire League?
No, but it's the first league title Gosport won since then. So
yeah. So what year was that?
That would have been 1945.
Yeah.
So how does that make you feel? That was the last team to win a Gosport. The league title for Gosport.
Yeah.
Well, the hero essentially was involved.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing was I mean, the club was formed in 1944, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you had Bill Adams, who'd been the secretary for 50 odd years. When you think about it, Brian Cosgrove, who was in my class at school, at the Gosport Central School, they were the only two secretaries that Gosport had ever had until a couple of years ago. Yeah. Which is quite remarkable, really. Yeah. And a lot of these players like Jimmy Schooler and Peter Harris, who I think Jimmy Schooler certainly were in the army, weren't they? So they come out of that, and they played for. There was another guy called Wally Barnes too, played for Arsenal. You come across that name?
Yes, yeah, it did mention that as well, and it was all under former Southampton player Stan Cribb as well.
Right. Now, Stan, because I was scouted by Southampton, and I know when Stan packed up managing the Boro, he was scouting for Southampton. Yeah.
So how does that?
Yeah. There were people when I started. There were people there who had been associated with the club ever since when it was created. There was a supporter called Vic Bray. Now, Vic Braceworthy, he was paraplegic. He'd been shot during the war by an Italian sniper and ended up at Stoke Mandeville. And he used to get himself out of there. I think he got shot in the bases, so he couldn't walk. He used to drive up in a Morris Minor car. He used to come with his son. And Vic always had the flag, and he was full of banter in the car. And he'd follow the borough everywhere. The borough was his life, really. Real characters. So some of these people had been there since the year dot, and it was still there when I was playing. Yeah.
When, of course, you were going on to win that first league title, 31 season.
Yeah.
All these ex-players who were originally there at the start and won that league title there. Did they ever tell you? Did you ever have that sense of pressure that you could be going on to getting this almost a second league title ever? Was there a bit of pressure on that? Did you ever?
No, there was, because we'd done very well, and of course I remember, Tony might remember this better than me, Tony Marnie. But I think we had a game against Swathering Athletic to win the league. And I think it was a poor game, but I think we scraped it about 1-0 or something like that. And I think that was probably because we were feeling the pressure. Yeah, the pressure was on to win the league. Yeah, definitely. But it all turned out right in the end.
So then you retired. Was that decision you made, or did someone have to come up to you and say about retiring?
No, I as I said, I'd had quite a few injuries. I got quite a bad injury playing at Tottenham. Mm-hmm. The goalkeeper came out. Now I swiveled to volley a ball, and he hit my standing foot, and it didn't do the knee ligaments any good at all. And I can feel it now, actually. I never really got over that entirely. So I played then in the reserves for a while. And then I helped Dennis Proby, who was running the youth team. I played as a sort of an old head in the youth team for a bit. Mm-hmm. And then Ron Wilson and I took over the reserve team. Mm-hmm. And we managed that with Ron. I managed that with Ron Wilson for a year. Then Ron decided he'd had enough. So I did it for a year, running the reserve, managing the reserve team. And then the club dispensed with the reserves, just running the the Southern League side.
Yeah.
And then I ended up, doing a lot of training. And I was assistant manager with them for a few years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that something you always wanted to go into, coaching and management? Or was it something just because you've retired, you didn't want to sort of lead the game, that was the next step?
No, it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity, I suppose, and it kept my involvement with the club. It was kind of an obvious step to take, but you realise that nothing ever replaces playing. Mm-hmm. Nothing replaces that camaraderie that you get, and that's the great thing for today. I still obviously socialise or mix with a lot of guys that I played with, and you're part of something that is kind of indestructible. It's understood. You don't have to necessarily talk about it. You've been part of the same dressing room, part of the same. You've had the same experiences of the pleasure of winning and having to stomach a loss and all that kind of thing. And sometimes you scrape a draw, but it's you've been there together, and that never goes. And I think that's one of the great things that sport gives you. Because in the end, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what you've won.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it integrates you with people. It gives you people, and you form relationships that are long lasting. And even against players that you've had fierce competition with, players who may have I've bumped into down the years, who you probably kick lumps out of you at some stage, and you talk about the old days. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So you said about the reserves.
Yeah.
Andy, why? How did you become assistant manager? Was that something Tony and Peter asked you to do, or was it something you went to?
Yeah. No, it's something they asked me to do because they needed somebody. I'd been taking the training for a while. They needed somebody to take the training, and as I didn't live far from the ground, it was very at that time it was very convenient. So they needed somebody to carry on with the training and do the pre-season and all the rest of it, and throughout the season. And it was something I willingly did. Yeah.
Was it a bit odd at first? You said about it's a bit odd sometimes when you've gone from playing with these players to then telling them what to do. Was that a bit odd at first, or was it okay because you were already a senior player amongst that?
No. I think I took to it. Fairly easy. I've always thought that fitness is the be all and end all.
Mm-hmm.
You then add talent to it. Yeah, there are plenty of talented players who could around, but if they're not committed to get themselves physically fit, I don't care how good you are, you're never going to be effective. So they didn't necessarily altogether like my methods, because a lot of it, especially pre-season, we would be down the shingle on Stokes Bay and running up down Fort Gilkicker, or what have you. Me trying to convince them it was good for them and tell them to admire the view, and that weren't they lucky? Weren't they lucky? I brought them to such lovely places. But
did it ever win over? Were they ever convinced by?
Well, some better than others. Some were over enamoured. Yeah, but I tell you what, I only ever saw one team run us off the park at Southern League level. That was Corby Town, who were full of Scottish steel workers.
Yeah.
And they, God, dear, oh dear, they were like a crowd of hornets. They were. But I mean, I suppose in a way, my background as a PE teacher did help. But of course, you're not dealing with kids, are you? You're dealing with adults, and yeah.
And so, how long were you assistant for them? Were you all the way up to when Peter and Tony left, or did you leave a bit earlier, or did you even stay beyond that?
No, it was probably up until the time. When did they leave?
So they left in 84 or 85.
Yeah, it was probably, I'm just thinking.
It was around about the time when Boro got relegated and then the season after got promoted.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about that time, maybe a year before they finished.
Yeah.
Possibly that was it, yeah. Yeah. But, no, I'm just looking at some notes I'd made.
That's fine.
I think what Gosport have always had, the successful teams, and I think Fareham were a good example of this, are the teams where there is a definite team spirit, a definite collective. Good teams have what I call a collective will.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't just happen. good teams, and certainly the Boro developed that during the Hampshire League, when we won the Hampshire League, that you knew when you were going to go on that pitch. And subsequent alert, other teams, other players from other teams had said we hated coming to Gosport. We didn't like coming to Gosport because we always knew we were in for a battle. And I think that that was evident for quite a lot of the time. Maybe not always, but overall, I think it was a difficult place. And let's hope they can get back to that.
Yeah.
That when people come to Gosport, they know they're going to be in for a game. Yeah, it's going to be. There's no easy points to be taken.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things everyone says, especially in these interviews. Everyone says is that the one thing Gosport had that they've never seen any other club really have when they've been to is that team spirit. I mean, Tony Marnie spoke about how he played one game for Waterlooville. He said, believe it, he went in the dressing room and it was nothing like it. There was nowhere near that closeness. And it felt a bit odd him going in there because he was almost seen as the black sheep, being a lad from Gosport coming into this team.
Yeah.
This one game. So, and I mean, I think every player talks about that close spirit. And I think Sean Gale mentioned in a interview he said about one of the big ambitions he has is to get Privett Park full of people from Gosport, get the place full of people from Gosport from top to bottom. Yeah.
And I think, and that's going to be the way forward. And I mean, I suppose Gosport crowds, when you played Fareham, you could get 1,000, maybe 1,200 people on a really good Easter Monday or Good Friday or something like that. I suppose the average crowd, I don't know, you'd probably have to look back, is about 300-400. But that can be built upon. And I think what the Borough have done in this, the recent pandemic, I think has been superb. I mean, I'll give full credit to those people who've been involved in that, and let's hope that there is a payback. But I think also by having a structure of young teams and all the rest of it, that's the way you bring their parents in. You've got to that's got to be the way forward, because I remember 30 odd years ago when I was involved, somebody once said, well, what are the people of Gosport want? Well, you've got to face facts. The people of Gosport, the majority of the people of Gosport couldn't give a damn.
Yeah.
All right. You've actually got to give them something that they see as positive, something that is going to be a good experience for them. And that's more difficult to achieve. But I do think that the signs are good, because I think the other thing is, like a lot of other clubs, long-term survival has got to be, it's not a given, is it? I mean, football's an expensive pastime these days if you're running clubs. Yeah. And generating the money that you need, possibly there has to be a restructure of football into more localised. Perhaps I don't know. I'm not suggesting this, and I'm not suggesting you put this in, but maybe you go back to having leagues which are based around Hampshire, because there are some really good clubs there or thereabouts.
I think with that, the idea, I think the money thing, I think there'll be a big difference with this coronavirus. I mean, there are a lot of clubs now that will have to think more locally in terms of where they get players. And I think because this has definitely set back, clubs a couple of years, just financially. So, I mean, in some times, it may not seem it now, but it could be a blessing in disguise in terms of clubs getting young players through financially thinking. I think one of the big clubs, I think, of Blackfield and Langley, who's had lots of, they were a bit financially dodgy at first, but this has really sort of ramped up. I think they've even asked to be relegated, haven't they? I think maybe even to Wessex.
I'm not sure. Don't know.
I think it may have happened to Division One. I think they might want to go down again. But I think this coronavirus pandemic will definitely have a lot of clubs looking within itself, thinking, "Are we run as well as we could be? Is there something we could do better?"
Yeah, and you can't. You see, the football is littered by people who come in and spend money, and when they disappear, the club. Yeah, we've all seen it, and what have you. And you can't expect. Yeah, you can't expect Ian McInnes to forever be putting money into the place. And I think he's right in his effort for it to become a self-sustaining business. And it's no good it's no good if the people of gospel thinking that we need to be playing at this level, that level. It could well be that the row back a bit. Mm-hmm. You know, in the end, it may be that you do have to play in a league which is far more localized, and the whole thing grows again gradually. But you know, it's not going to be easy for clubs to survive this at any level.
No, it's definitely not. So going back, after you left Gosport as assistant manager, did you take any more coaching or managerial roles?
No.
No? Did it ever take anything else, or was it just you didn't want to?
Yeah, well, I did because no, that's interesting. I did because at that time my kids were very young too, so I had those pressures to deal with. So that's one of the reasons. That's probably the main reason I dropped out. But later on, I did something that I said I'd never ever do, and that was manage a team with my own son in it.
Ah, yeah.
But he played as a 10-year-old. He played for I don't know, in the Solent League. He played for an under-10 team. Anyway, the guy who was running it, he left. He got a job in the north of England somewhere, and so it was left to a pal of mine who came to me, whose son also played, and he said, "Look, if I do all the secretarial work, will you help me manage this team on a football level?" So in the end, I said, "Okay, all right, I'll help you." And we did this for about 8 years. And we ended up running. We ran in the Hampshire League. We ran as Gosport Boro youth team.
Yeah,
and we had a very good side. We did. A lot of the boys were from Bay House School, and we used to joke. It wasn't entirely true that to play in our team you had to be a 3A level candidate. To get in our team, you needed to be. And actually, one of the lads, he is a headmaster in Southampton. Yeah, no, I mean, they were gilt-edged, these kids.
Yeah.
A lot of them were. And they were bright. And I know from my own experience, if you've got intelligent boys, it stands there, you've got a better chance of making a better team out of it. Now, that may seem a bit elitist, and it's not meant to be. But that's the straight fact. You've got an intelligent boy and you explain something to them or show them. Generally speaking, you only have to do it once, And we did have a very good team. It was unfortunately, and I think we would have won the Hampshire Youth League that year. I'm convinced we would have done because we were going very well. But we did not play a game, I think, till after Christmas, because the weather was appalling. And I remember one night we had a game at Cowes, evening game over there. We got over there and told it was called off. Yeah. So that was actually my that was actually my last. But then I also worked in the PE department at Bay House School, going back to my roots really, one day a week.
Yeah.
I ended up running the sixth form football team, which was brilliant. I really enjoyed that because again, they were all three A-level candidates. Now, don't get me wrong. I've always tried, to get young people. I don't care however limited they are to enjoy playing football.
Yeah,
it's basically a simple game, and you got the ball, you give it to somebody on your side, and if you give it to somebody from the other side, well, you go and get it back. And that was my philosophy as a player. If I gave the ball away, you gave it away, you go and get it back.
Yeah.
So really, between the age of about 9 and 63, I always was connected with a football team.
Yeah.
Always had, either as a player or a coach or something else. But yeah.
So when you did stop it all, did it all feel a bit odd? Because you've been doing that job nearly for 40 plus years, and then all of a sudden, after you.
No, I didn't, because I had other. No, because I suppose I've drifted back. I didn't go to watch the Boro for years, but now I've gone back to watching them. Not every game, because sometimes other things get in the way, but I take an interest in what's going on there. You have your time, and that's it. The club has run since 1944, and everybody's passing through. Everybody is just passing through that club. Some say longer than others. All right, but the important thing is you have people coming in all the time, and you have your time. And I think the things that are important to me and strong in my memories are of little consequence to anybody else. And it's interesting. I mean, I sit up in the Harry Mizzen stand sometimes with Gary Duria comes along, and John Hawes, Tony Stairs, or what have you. And I guess most players, or most people in the ground at that time, probably haven't got a clue that some of us have ever played for Gospel, and why should they? We were just a ship that enjoyed its own, which passed on through the night, if you like, but that's the way it should be. Yeah, we all have our time, and I certainly enjoyed the time I had there.
Is it a bit frustrating watching Boro as now, not as a player but as a fan? Because Tony Mullice, he doesn't want to watch a lot of Boro. He goes occasionally, but he gets so frustrated because he's like, he'll think of something, maybe a player has that, and think, I could have done that. And he gets a bit frustrated with himself because he's not on the pitch.
No, it's very easy. It's very easy to criticise. And of course, things are never as good as in my day, are they? Yeah. But the reality is, players are fitter these days. The tactics are more interesting. Teams are organised better. Now, I'm not saying that makes the whole product, the whole thing, a better spectacle. And I sometimes wonder if players today enjoy it in the same way as we did. For difference. I don't understand. I've yet to have any. I don't see many smiles on people's faces. Now, I'm not saying we're always smiling my day, because we certainly weren't. And I certainly weren't when I grew up in the time of the tackle from behind. You had to learn how to do it. But everything, I just wonder whether players do enjoy it as much. Finding space seems, I never understand, I don't know whether you've seen this, why from the goalkeeper's got the ball,
Mm-hmm.
and all the players are within about 10 yards of the halfway line on one side of the pitch.
Yeah, I've always.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's that every game doesn't. I always think it's a bit odd why no one just wanders
Can
out.
somebody explain to me
Yeah.
what that's about?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's a great.
Why don't one player go and stand out on the other wing? Hey, I still wait to find out. You know what the purpose of that is. You know, it's a quicker game than I think. Would players of yesterday fit in today's football? Yeah, of course they would. They would just adapt to the kind of mores of football today. Yeah.
Right. So then we're almost done, but before, of course, I let you go, the one thing I want to ask you is, now we ask every person that comes on it, is who were the top 3 players you played with at Boro?
Right, top 3.
Yeah. So have you got them, or do you need a little bit of a think?
Well, no. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It a bit if you got a couple extra. You can have special situations. So the first player you would say was in your top 3?
I thought Dave Price was a top player. He might be a surprise choice. Dave Price was very competitive. He was a hard player. He was generally, well controlled. You could play him anywhere. He'd give you. Tony Mill was a great goalkeeper. Mick Slaymaker, Tony Marnie. Cool, you get depends. So many. I would say Neville Wood. You know, I mean, he's a player we haven't mentioned. God, that's hard. That's hard, Sam. That's a hard.
Stumped you. That's the only question that stumped you so far, then.
Yeah. You see the Brickwoods. Okay, if you're gonna force me, I would say Tony Mill, Dave Price, Tony Marnie. I played in the first. He played with me at the first game he played for the Borough. I remember it well. It was at Pitt Street against Portsmouth Royal Navy. In Pitt Street, I mean, it's a supermarket now, isn't it? And he was playing inside left, big gangly inside left. Yeah. I mean, his record just speaks for itself, doesn't it? 765. Yeah, I suppose if you look at my playing career, this guy Dennis Proby. Sometimes in football, if you're going to push on, you need somebody to shout your case. And I think he was instrumental in getting me an England amateur trial. That was at Chesterfield.
We haven't heard that one.
Sorry?
Amateur trial. Where did that happen?
Right, that was 1970, I think it was. Yeah, that was when England had an amateur team.
Yeah.
It was just before when all players became players and responsible for their own taxes and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was Southern counties against Northern counties, played at the old Chesterfield ground, and we lost 3-1. It didn't go any further than that. And I had 2 or 3 FA 11s against, I think, the Navy, at Fratton Park. Yeah, so
was that quite a big moment to play at Fratton Park? A place where you won as a kid. Was that quite a big moment for you to go and play at Fratton?
Oh yeah, because when you go in there as an 8-9-year-old, these you're looking at these players, they're gods, aren't they? And you think, God, if as much as I'd love to play at Gosport Borough at Privett Park, to play at Fratton Park, I probably had half a dozen games there. I played there at Paragon. We got to I think it's probably the Ants Junior or Pompey Junior, Pompey Senior Cup or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, so.
That's the career, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah, I'm not sure it's in a nutshell. Yeah, we've rambled a fair bit there, Sam. I think you're going to take you hours to sort this out, isn't it?
No, it's too fun. And what was it? You were worried that it wasn't going to be too long. It was going to be 20 minutes.
No. What's 20 minutes
Don't need to
these
worry.
days? I don't know what I'm going to do the rest of the day now, Sam. I've got plenty to do.
So that's the end. I would like to thank Peter Mullice for, of course, coming on. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. So I would like to thank everyone for listening to the second episode of the Privett Park Legends podcast, and goodbye for now.